Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. A quiet technical decision in Moscow just killed one of the last restraints on the nuclear system, and almost nobody noticed. Russia and the United States have effectively walked away from an agreement to dispose of weapons-grade plutonium, while talking about nuclear weapons as if they were just another line on a defense budget. The contradiction is simple. In public, we talk about deterrence and stability. In reality, we are keeping the material for thousands of Nagasaki-level warheads on the shelf. Even in the original deal, each side committed to dispose of on the order of 30,000 kilograms of weapons-grade plutonium. One Nagasaki-type bomb used about 6 kilograms and produced a blast of roughly 20,000 tons of TNT. Do the basic math, and you get thousands of potential warheads per side, before we even touch thermonuclear designs. This is the part no politician wants to explain on TV. The convenient lie sounds like this. We have smart defenses now, precise systems, limited options. Nuclear weapons are manageable. The physics disagrees. A few kilos of plutonium can erase a city district. A coordinated use of thousands of warheads is not manageable. It is system death. In short, the math doesn't care about our doctrines. There is one number in this whole story that nobody in Washington or Brussels likes to say out loud. We'll get to it. Meanwhile, look at how we actually live. Tens of millions of people are concentrated around major capitals, including more than 30 million around Moscow and St. Petersburg alone. You can probably mirror that pattern around other big hubs in Europe. If you're watching this from Berlin, Paris, Warsaw, or Vilnius, ask yourself a simple question. Where is your realistic, stocked, tested civil defense shelter within walking distance? Most of us have at best a metro station. Deep tunnels, yes. Filtration, food, water, medicine for months or years? Not really. Now, here's the part that keeps economists and engineers awake at night. Even if missile defense worked perfectly and intercepted every incoming warhead, the detonations would happen in the upper atmosphere, not over empty oceans. The radioactive fallout still comes down on someone's economy, someone's agriculture, someone's cities. You see the problem here, right? The old agreement on plutonium disposal tried to reduce this risk at the source, turning thousands of potential warheads into something useless for weapons. By denouncing it, both sides keep the option to reverse the process at any time. Officially, this is framed as responding to changed circumstances. In practice, it behaves like a decision to keep fuel for a much larger arsenal ready in the warehouse. So, let's take a breath. Where does this leave us so far? We relaxed about nuclear war, while structural constraints on plutonium stockpiles were quietly removed, and our real civil defenses at the human level are mostly symbolic. And this brings us to the one number that changes the entire equation. If you take a conservative warhead design of around 5 kilograms of plutonium, a stockpile of 30,000+ kilograms translates into roughly 6,000 to 7,000 Nagasaki-class devices. Double that for both Russia and the US, and then remember that plutonium is often used as the trigger for thermonuclear bombs, where the main yield comes from a fusion stage that multiplies the explosion several times over. Even in the modest estimates mentioned in the original analysis, you end up with something on the order of tens of millions of tons of TNT equivalent on each side. Here is that number, and this is why it matters. This is the structural flaw you can't fix with a press release. The entire post-Cold War narrative told Europeans and Americans that nuclear war was an outdated fear, a relic. Treaties were signed, tests were stopped, arsenals were cut. But the underlying production chains, the knowledge, and part of the materials never went away. They were parked, not erased. If you work in energy, industry, or logistics, you've seen this movie before. We decommission capacity on paper while leaving the core machinery in place just in case. Except this time the machinery isn't an old gas plant. It's the ability to turn plutonium into hundreds or thousands of deliverable warheads at industrial scale. Now add incentives. For Russia, nuclear parity is the last absolute guarantee against being treated as another periphery to be managed. For the United States, maintaining superiority is part of its global role and domestic political identity. For European elites, nuclear weapons are both a shield and a hostage situation. They rely on the US umbrella while sitting on territory that would be the first target. The public rhetoric is about stability and shared values. The private briefings are about escalation ladders, strike scenarios, and acceptable damage. This is the part no European cabinet wants to see leaked. So where does that leave ordinary people? Imagine a middle-class family in a Baltic capital. Mortgage, car loan, kids, plans for the next 20 years. On paper, they live inside NATO's security architecture. In practice, they live within the radius of several possible target sets, with no meaningful shelter and no say in nuclear doctrine. This is the moment where all the talk about European values turns into a line item on your life expectancy. If you take one thing from this video, let it be this. We have normalized nuclear weapons in our language, while the underlying physics stayed exactly as brutal as it was in 1945. A few kilograms of metal, arranged correctly, still mean that there are no winners in a real nuclear exchange, only different speeds of collapse. And yet, we quietly dismantled the culture of fear and civil defense that at least forced politicians to think twice. There is a deep irony here. The same work that gave us nuclear weapons also gave us nuclear power, radiation medicine, and industrial applications that actually improve lives. By conquering the physics of the nucleus, scientists created both the most efficient killing device in history and some of the most advanced tools for treating cancer. From a systems point of view, this is typical. Every technology has both military and civil branches, and you rarely get one without the other. Now, here's where the story stops making sense. We treat the civilian benefits as proof that we are responsible with the technology, while our political systems drift back into casual nuclear talk and our parliaments quietly unwind constraints like the plutonium disposal deal. Does this look like a strategy from your corner of Europe, or just managed decline with a warhead hanging over it? From Lithuania, from the Baltics, from any small state, the view is simple. We do not control the global nuclear game. We only live with its consequences. The only thing that ever made the enlightened West respect limits was the knowledge that a real attack on Russia, or any serious nuclear power, could end in their own cities becoming radioactive glass. The moment that fear fades, the old habits of superiority and risk-taking return. The proverb about living with wolves stops being a metaphor and becomes technical guidance. In the end, we cannot uninvent nuclear weapons, and Russia cannot simply live without them in a world that still understands only strength at that level. But we can at least stop lying to ourselves. The system is fragile, the materials are still there, and the room for error is shrinking, not growing. Thank you for watching. Take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and try to remember, slogans don't power grids, systems do.